Sunni, Shia, an all-out Middle East war spirals out of control. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Shannon Bream for Brett Baer. The United States now finds itself smack dab in the middle of sectarian violence in the Middle East that hasn't been seen by some accounts in generations. Meanwhile, the Obama administration's rhetoric doesn't seem to match the reality on the ground. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is at the White House with our lead story tonight.
Saudi Arabia today launched more airstrikes in Yemen to try and take back the country from Houthi rebels tied to Iran, while the rebels captured a key city in the south, allowing them to control the port of Aden.
No revision to my comments.
As White House spokesman Josh Earnest again insisted he's not walking back President Obama's claim that Yemen is a model of success for his counter-terror policy.
And I feel confident in saying to you that there are other plots that have not been reported. That have also been disrupted because of the success of the strategy that this administration has put in place in Yemen.
It was only last September the president, as he launched airstrikes against ISIS terrorists, said this.
This strategy of taking out terrorists who threaten us while supporting partners on the front lines is one that we have successfully pursued in Yemen and Somalia for years.
The other half of the president's claim of success, Somalia, is struggling too. Today, al-Shabaab terrorists linked to al-Qaeda killed at least 6 people and trapped an unknown number of others at a Mogadishu hotel. All of the chaos leading the president's former ambassador to Iraq, James Jeffrey, to declare, quote, "We're in a goddamn free fall here." In Yemen today, Houthi rebels did face resistance from loyalists of President Hadi, who's fled the country. Hadi arrived in Egypt for an Arab League summit that's weighing the option of Saudi-led ground troops going into Yemen to bombard the rebels.
We're in the middle of a civil war. We're in the middle of what's shaping up to be a Shiite versus Sunni civil war. It's a Persian-Iranian Shiite war versus an Arab Saudi Arabian Sunni war, and we're in the middle of that. And at the same time, we're negotiating with Iran to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons.
At those nuclear talks with Secretary of State John Kerry, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said the Saudis need to butt out of Yemen.
Well, we have condemned them. We believe that they will only cause loss of human life. They have to stop, and everybody has to encourage dialogue.
Meanwhile, at the first White House briefing since Sergeant Bo Bergdahl was charged with desertion and misbehaving in front of the enemy, Earnest ducked whether he agrees with National Security Advisor Susan Rice's claim last year about Bergdahl.
Do you still believe that Bo Bergdahl served with honor and distinction?
Ed, I don't want to be in a position of commenting on an ongoing military justice investigation. That there are obviously complicated issues related to the chain of command because I'm a representative of the Commander-in-Chief. So I'm not going to speculate on the ongoing investigation.
Okay. Of course, last June 1st, Susan Rice did not wait for that investigation. She said that Bergdahl served with honor and distinction, and she added, we'll eventually learn what transpired. Now we are. Shannon?
Indeed. Ed Henry live at the White House. Thank you, Ed.
Good to see you.
It is undoubtedly one of the most challenging jobs in the world. But could the presidency be so demanding and scheduling so inflexible that President Obama couldn't find time for the head of America's strongest alliance? Here's correspondent Kevin Cork.
Critics say you'd think President Obama could spare a few minutes to meet with the head of NATO, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, who just might have something important to say on Ukraine, Crimea, on Russia's recent threat to Denmark. But for some reason, he did not. A scheduling conflict, White House officials said, so they dispatched Defense Secretary Ash Carter and National Security Advisor Susan Rice instead.
They had a conversation about a number of policies that the United States is working closely with NATO to pursue.
The administration said the meetings ranged from Iran to Afghanistan, but others wondered, couldn't the Commander-in-Chief himself have attended? Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton opined, with the threats of Russian aggression and radical Islam, now is not the time to be putting distance between the United States and our important security partners in NATO. A check of the president's public schedule at the time showed he met with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani Tuesday, but Wednesday and Thursday were mostly open. Behind it all may be the tenuous relationship between the U.S. and Russia and their part in the Iranian nuclear talks. Meeting with NATO's chief might upset Moscow, something the White House can ill afford.
I think if you look right now, just with an administration and a White House so focused on appearance and so focused on perception, not to take this meeting sends the absolute wrong signal to the region.
A region counting on a strong U.S.-NATO alliance for safety and security. By the way, the White House confirmed today that Stoltenberg has been invited to meet with the president in May. Shannon?
Thank you, Kevin. Part of Republicans' 2014 strategy to retake the Senate involved retiring Harry Reid. Well, the majority did turn for them, and today we learned the minority leader will indeed be retiring. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel looks at Reid's decision and who may be next in line.
Democratic leader Harry Reid says he will retire next year after 30 years in the Senate. There were questions about whether he could win re-election and if he had the stamina after suffering serious injuries while exercising on New Year's Day.
This accident has caused us, for the first time, to have a little downtime. I have had time to ponder and to think. We've got to be more concerned about the country, the Senate, the state of Nevada, than us. And as a result of that, I'm not going to run for re-election.
The National Republican Senatorial Committee pounced, saying, quote, on the verge of losing his own election, and after losing the majority, Senator Harry Reid has decided to hang up his rusty spurs. During the 2014 campaign, part of the rallying cry for Republicans was fire Harry Reid as majority leader. It worked, with 9 Republicans winning what were Democrat seats. Kansas Republican Senator Jerry Moran served as NRSC chairman in 2014.
It was a significant component, this idea of new leadership, and certainly in the political vernacular, it was very much about fire Senator Reid. My guess is that it's much less fun for a former majority leader to be a former majority leader. Once you lead the United States Senate, I doubt that you like being in the minority.
Today, President Obama called into a radio interview to praise Reid's work and surprised him.
Is this Harry Reid?
It is.
Harry, this is Barack.
Well, I'll be damned. I'll be damned.
Moran says a big part of Reid's leadership was keeping fellow Democrats from tough votes on the president's policies.
In my view, the Democrat leader, Senator Reid, was protecting Democrat senators from having to choose between the president's agenda, the White House, and many of their voters back home.
The next Democratic leader will be selected by secret ballot in November 2016. Illinois' Dick Durbin, New York's Chuck Schumer, and Washington's Patty Murray are potential contenders. Reid and Durbin endorsed Schumer today, yet he is seen as close to Wall Street, so expect a strong liberal push for Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. While many liberals would love to see Warren run for president, some outside groups have already floated her name to replace Reid. At this point, her office says she doesn't plan to run to be Senate leader either. Shannon?
All right, we'll talk about it with the panel. Mike Emanuel live on the Hill. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, we continue to learn more about the man suspected of flying that Germanwings plane straight into a mountain. And evidence suggests he was a severely depressed man hiding his illness from his employer. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott reports from Marseille, France, tonight.
The grim search for those killed on Germanwings Flight 9525 continues. Recovery teams say they've found some 600 pieces of remains of 150 victims. Not a single body is intact. Amid new revelations about Andreas Lubitz, the co-pilot who officials say apparently crashed the plane into the side of a mountain. Evidence found in his homes in Germany appears to indicate Lubitz hid an illness, reportedly depression, from the airline. Police found ripped up sick notes written by doctors even for the day of the crash.
These items are being, since last night, scrutinized on their relevance regarding this case. We are hoping for clues regarding this man's motives.
Germanwings tells Fox News they never saw the sick notes. This German hospital confirms to Fox News its staff saw Lubitz over the last 2 months, including 2 weeks before the crash. They reportedly say not for depression. Police report they didn't find any suicide note or confession motivation or any political or religious motivation for the incident. As a result of the crash, which occurred when Lubitz locked the plane's captain out of the cockpit and forced it down, some European airlines are now adopting a policy used by U.S. airlines. 2 people must remain in the cockpit at all times. None of this helping families of victims coming to grips with their grief. Some gathered around a makeshift memorial, some getting as close to the site as they can. Among those remembering the life of one of those victims, the father of 37-year-old American Robert Oliver Calvo.
Instead of focusing our minds and hearts on that those last 9 or 10 minutes, we prefer to think about those 37 years that we've been together, that we've shared our lives, our experiences, our fellowship.
Lufthansa, the parent company of Germanwings, is saying tonight it will offer 50,000 euros, that's just under $55,000, in immediate financial assistance to the families of all those who died in the crash. Many have come a long way and have a long wait until the remains of their loved ones are identified. Shannon.
Just heartbreaking. Greg, thank you. Up next, we break down the latest action on Wall Street and the economy with Melissa Francis. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. WNYW in New York continues to follow the building explosion and collapse we told you about yesterday. Mayor Bill de Blasio says someone may have, quote, inappropriately accessed a gas line before that explosion. Nearly 24 people were hurt when the blast leveled 3 apartment buildings. WJBK in Detroit has this cautionary tale. A father was hospitalized after unknowingly eating several marijuana-laced brownies baked by his daughter. She told police she got the pot from a friend and didn't think anyone would actually eat them. Police officials note that marijuana today is much more potent than it was in the 1960s and 70s. And this is a live look at Los Angeles from KTTV. The big story there tonight, mosquitoes testing positive for West Nile virus, the first such result in that state this year. No cure for West Nile virus, which is transmitted to people through the bite of an infected mosquito. Residents are urged to eliminate mosquito breeding areas, such as water left standing for more than a week. That is tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.